The Lighthouse That Listened. In a remote coastal town where the very air tasted of salt and silence, stood a solitary lighthouse, a sentinel against the encroaching vastness of the ocean. More than just a navigation aid, this ancient structure, weathered by countless storms and the relentless caress of sea spray, was said to possess a profound, almost mystical ability. It listened, not to the tempestuous roars of the waves, nor to the biting whispers of the wind, but to the intricate, often sorrowful echoes of the human heart. The townsfolk, a hardy, superstitious lot, spoke in hushed tones of this peculiar legend. They claimed that the lighthouse, imbued with an otherworldly empathy, attentively received the confessions of those who dared to unburden their deepest regrets. Near the whispering, ever-present shore, it was a haven for the burdened, a silent confessional open only to the brave and the broken. Mariners, their faces etched with the deep lines of sun, salt in untold hardships, would seek solace there. Widows, their grief a palpable shroud around them, would come to articulate the unspoken sorrows that festered within their souls. And wanderers carrying unseen weights and burdens from distant lands would find their way to this desolate, yet strangely comforting, stretch of coast. They would arrive under the cloak of night when the moon offered only a pale, indifferent glow, and the stars seemed like distant, critical eyes. There, under the vast, inky canvas of the sky, they would utter aloud the confessions they could not forgive in themselves, the burdens that had haunted their waking hours and disturbed their dreams. Each time, as a whispered truth was released into the cool, embracing darkness, and as the vast, indifferent ocean seemed to accept the weighty admission, an extraordinary phenomenon would occur. The lighthouse's beam, until then a steady, rhythmic sweep across the dark waters, would subtly, yet distinctly, shift. It was no random flicker, no mere trick of the light or the weather. No, it was a precise, deliberate movement, an almost knowing gesture. The powerful beam would narrow, focusing its intense luminescence on a singular, shimmering spot in the endless, churning expanse of the sea. This was the exact place where, according to the ancient lore, a soul still found itself restless, tethered by an unabsolved regret, a lingering echo of an unforgiven past. It was a spectral marker pointing to the invisible chains that bound a spirit to its earthly sorrow. Yet, for all its whispered power, the lighthouse itself remained shrouded in an impenetrable mystery. For countless years, its heavy iron door had been sealed, its rusted hinges groaning under the weight of time and disuse. Its windows, like vacant eyes, remained dark and unseeing, offering no glimpse into the secrets held within. No one in the living memory of the town knew who or what truly resided within its ancient, imposing stone walls now. The theories, however, were as numerous and varied as the pebbles on the beach. Some claimed it was haunted by the tormented spirit of a former keeper, a man whose life had ended tragically within its very confines. Legend had it that he was the keeper, who, long ago, had failed in his sacred duty to save a ship from the crushing, unforgiving embrace of a storm, a catastrophic oversight that had sent countless souls to a watery grave. His failure, it was whispered, still resonated within the very stones of the tower, a mournful lament perpetually echoing through its empty chambers. Others, perhaps more hopeful or less inclined to macabre tales, offered a different, more poignant narrative. They suggested that the lighthouse listened not out of judgment or a desire to merely record human suffering, but because someone inside, perhaps the very spirit of that long-dead keeper, or perhaps an entirely different entity altogether, still yearned desperately to be forgiven. They believed the lighthouse was a beacon of lingering hope, a silent plea for absolution that extended beyond the veil of life and death. The whispers, like the relentless rhythmic tides, continued their ceaseless ebb and flow through the small, isolated town, weaving themselves into the very fabric of its daily life, shaping its myths and its melancholic character. Then, one day, amidst the hushed legends and the enduring, profound mystery, A young woman arrived. Her name was Ilara. Her face, framed by dark, wind-swept hair, was pale, and her eyes held a haunted, almost unearthly depth that spoke volumes of unshed tears and unspoken burdens. There was a weariness about her, a subtle tremor in her hands that betrayed years of silent suffering. This was her childhood home, a place she had fled years ago, an escape driven by an unspeakable secret, a profound regret that had clung to her like a persistent shadow, darkening every moment of her existence. She had returned not for reunion or reconciliation, but with a singular, desperate purpose to unburden herself. She was drawn back by the irresistible, almost magnetic pull of the lighthouse's legend, by the desperate, gnawing need to shed the heavy, suffocating cloak of her past. As dusk began to paint the western sky in ever-deepening shades of bruised purple and melancholic gray, Elara made her solitary pilgrimage to the shore. The cool, damp sand cushioned her every step, a soft, yielding embrace beneath her tired feet. The air was thick, heavy with the bracing scent of salt and the ancient, untold secrets of the sea. She walked until her toes met the cold, frothy edge of the water, the rhythmic lapping of the waves at her feet, a strangely comforting, almost hypnotic sound in the vast, encompassing silence. The ocean, a boundless, inscrutable entity, stretched before her, holding within its depths both solace and terror. There, at the very boundary between land and sea, she stood, poised on the precipice of her own confession, her voice at first a trembling, almost inaudible whisper, barely audible above the gentle sigh of the waves, gradually gained strength. It grew imbued with the raw, potent emotion of years of silent suffering, of nights spent wrestling with inner demons. She spoke her truth, her confession, pouring forth from the depths of her being, each word a release. It was carried on the wind, offered freely, irrevocably, to the boundless, indifferent ocean. She spoke of her regrets, of the pivotal choices she wished with every fiber of her being she could undo. She spoke of the pervasive guilt that had clung to her like a persistent, suffocating shadow, darkening every waking moment. Her words, once trapped, now flowed like a torrent, a cathartic release washing over the dark, murmuring waters. It was a cleansing, a desperate plea for liberation from the chains of her own making. And then, as the last syllable of her deeply personal confession faded into the vastness of the twilight, a palpable tremor, a ripple of inexplicable energy, ran through the very fabric of the air. The lighthouse, until that moment a silent, immutable, dark sentinel, seemed to stir, to awaken from its centuries-long slumber. Its beam, a single powerful eye, a piercing gaze in the gathering gloom, began to turn. It was not its usual majestic sweeping arc across the horizon, the familiar gesture of guiding distant ships home to safe harbor. No, this movement was profoundly different. It was slow, deliberate, an almost agonizingly precise rotation, imbued with an almost sentient understanding. The beam hesitated for a mere fraction of a second, a breath held in the cosmic stillness, then, with an undeniable, purposeful intent, it pointed, not towards the distant, forgiving horizon, where ships sought their way, nor towards the vast, encompassing sky, but directly, undeniably, back at her. The light, stark and unyielding in its brilliance, bathed Elara in its raw, unfiltered glow, transforming her into a luminous, almost ethereal figure against the encroaching darkness. It was a searing, revealing spotlight, a divine judgment, perhaps, or a profound recognition, illuminating her vulnerability, her raw, exposed soul. For a long, suspended moment, an eternity compressed into seconds, she stood there, caught within that intense, unwavering beam, her deepest secret laid bare for the world, or perhaps just for the lighthouse to see. Was it a final, inescapable judgment, an indictment of her past actions, a condemnation from the very essence of the ocean itself? Or was it finally, after years of self-imposed torment and silent penance, the light of true self-forgiveness, shining upon her, guiding her towards a path of redemption, illuminating the way home to her own peace.